Okay, so I'm going to make another attempt at responding to LordImmolation's video on his response to my video on time. I made a couple so far, but for one reason or another they weren't able to get uploaded. But hopefully this one will work. So first off, I have to say thank you for the props. That does mean a lot coming from one of the few people I know who know more words with more syllables in them than I do. If any of my subscribers haven't subscribed to LordImmolation's video, I do recommend it. He seems to know more than most people on here as to actual philosophy, by which I mean academic philosophy, and how it's commonly practiced and looked at by current philosophers who are currently working in the field. But to get into the response to your video, I'm going to start with the second and third points that you made, which I believe are kind of the same, and how all three of them I'm going to try to put together, and how the passage of time works. When you talk about actual nows, I think that applies to the passage of time. Basically, I think it can be interpreted in saying that time passes is the same as saying that there are metaphysical nows. And I'll agree that saying that time passes in a causal, deterministic universe is redundant, because every moment in time has the same, or the past, present, and future. There's no place where you can say that this is the present for any given reason. Nothing changes. But I think where my theory says that the reason that my theory says that there is a passage of time is because there could be instances where the time does change, and so the past of one object could be different than, or the past of one now could be different than the future of another now. And if at any point that's the case, then the passage of time does come into play, because that's how one now does not overtake another now. And so if something changes in the past, it won't change the present, because that now that's in the past will keep going forward in time at the same speed that the now that's in the present does. And so, as soon as we have these any events which could change time, like random events, then all of a sudden metaphysical nows, or the passage of time, isn't arbitrary anymore. And so if that's the only reason that we're ruling it out, then if there is some case in which it could be it could differentiate things, then we should automatically bring it back in. So where these changes could occur, again, random events, and why I think that random events occur is because, well, Occam's razor would say that it's the more simple explanation of the existence of the universe. The way your theory of the universe would require the entire thing basically popping into existence at the same time, which would be really complex event. And the beginning of the universe would either have to be a random event or an act of God. And if you have a theory which can explain how the universe began, not using one of these two, then let me know. But I think if it is an act of God, I think my theory still applies, in that he would choose the simpler route in order to create the universe. But just saying for now that it's a random event, instead of having a single random event that creates this entirely complex object, it makes more sense to say that there was this one infinitely dense object which wasn't moving because there was nothing else to compare it to. And then a random event occurs in which that breaks into two objects, and so it starts moving, and that's basically how time begins, the Big Bang. And then another random event occurs, breaks into 3, 4, 5 objects, etc. And so the things start bouncing off each other, comparing to each other, and eventually it all flows out into the universe. So I think that there's evidence that random events do occur, and the reason that I think that they can occur in the past as well as the future is because if there was an object that wasn't moving, an infinitely dense object that wasn't moving, then there would be no time on which the event could occur, and so it would have to be separate than the universe's timeline in order for the universe to actually begin. So that brings in a series of nows, and so where I say the present is at any point would be at the beginning or at the occurrence of a random event. That random event would basically spawn a version of the present which would have a future that's different than, well, it would have a past as it flows along. That past would be different than the way that its future experienced it, and so if you traveled back into the past, it might actually appear to be a different universe that you're in, but it would still be the same universe. And the reason that that doesn't affect the future is because, like, if time is a string that's flowing along, and you're pulling that string, and at some point you cut it and start moving this part of the string differently, then this part of the string is still going to flow along. So if your present is at the beginning of one string, another present could occur and start moving differently, but it's never going to catch up to the present that you are in. So that's basically how the theory works. It's not a probabilistic theory. I don't think that random events have any sort of probability assigned to them, and any place where a random event occurs, I mean, there's still a single space-time object. It's not moving along branches or anything. It's just changing at different places. It's simply the case that no change can overtake the present, any other present. So, I mean, within the sections which aren't changing, there still are indexical nows, but having that one point where the section begins gives us a non-arbitrary point in time, a moment in time, which is flowing forward. And so it's easiest to describe the now by saying that those moments in time are the beginning of our nows, and they can exist for as long as we experience them, but then I simply describe it as having a necessity for a passage of time, so everything must flow. So yeah, if you have any other questions, I'm going to try to go into a more detailed description of random events and how they apply to the theory in another video. But if you have any more questions about the passage of time, please do feel free to ask.